This is the Ranger Report Podcast. News, insights, predictions, interviews, and information about the Texas Rangers from the major leagues to the minor leagues. And now, here are your hosts, Ben and CJ Berryman.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Ranger Report Podcast. We are joined today by Rangers broadcaster Eric Nadel. Eric, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing really, really good. I figured we'd start off with the most obvious one that has just happened. What are your thoughts? And you were there, of course, in 2010 when he beat us for the World Series. But what are your thoughts on the Bruce Bochy signing?
Well, I was really pleasantly surprised that Bruce wanted the job. I know that his retirement was largely health related and not because he was just tired of managing. But I really felt that if he came back, he would come back to a team that was already in a winning position, not a team in a rebuilding situation. So it's very encouraging to me that Chris Young and the Ranger owners were able to show Bruce Bochy that the Rangers are not that far away from being a winning team, or else I don't think he would have taken the job. But he's an incredible manager. And I've met him a couple of times, but I don't really know him. And I'm looking forward to getting a chance to meet with him on a daily basis and get to know him.
Yeah, we talked to Taylor Hearn last week, and he said that the biggest shock that the biggest draw that he got from him was he's almost as tall as I am. He's like, most managers aren't as tall as I am. And he said, I heard everything he was saying, but I was just shocked at how tall he was.
Yeah, and the former catcher too. Back when he was playing, there weren't very many catchers who went 6'4", 6'5". That was pretty unusual.
Yeah. So let's talk about the job that Tony Beasley did, and I know we as fans and guys that cover the team that we hope that he's retained. Tony Beasley's a beacon of light, I think, and I think he did a great job with what he had. And difficult situation with Woodward getting fired, and then John Daniels, what was it, a week later, getting fired, and he did the best that he could with what he had. And we talked to Hicksy, what was it, like a week or two after Ben, and Hicksy said it's been a long time coming for Beasley to get this opportunity. So just kind of talk about how you think Tony Beasley did in that interim role.
Yeah, given the circumstances, I think he was really successful in bringing the team together and making sure the guys were in the right frame of mind to play. Unfortunately, they just didn't have enough pitching.
Right.
It mattered who the manager was going to be over those last 2 months of the season. They weren't going to win more than they lost because they just didn't have good enough pitching. But I think Tony did a good job. I think he basically won the respect of everybody as a manager. He already had their respect, both as a coach and as a person. And the Rangers have said that Tony will be on Bruce Bochy's coaching staff.
Good.
So I'm confident that he'll still be there. And it was a tough act to follow in that Chris Woodward was really beloved by both the players and the media and everybody around the Rangers. There aren't many guys who could have taken over as the interim manager and had that sort of love and respect immediately from everybody surrounding the team. But Tony is the one guy, who certainly commanded that same sort of admiration and respect.
I loved watching him. They put it on YouTube. The Rangers did him singing "Happy Birthday" to Robin and Taylor. That was neat.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
That guy can sing.
He can sing. Yeah.
Yeah, he did the national anthem. Was that last year, I think, at one game? And, man, it was really good.
Yeah. And, there were days back in my early days of doing the Rangers where you'd see players occasionally sing the national anthem. Nelson Bryles did it a couple of times, and some guys on other teams too. But you just don't see that anymore. So to have seen Tony get a chance to do it and nail it the way that he did was fantastic.
All right, so let's move to some of the Rangers' big signings from the beginning of last year. Of course, everybody said that Simeon and Seager were a bust, 2 weeks into the season, and Martin Perez, wow, what a signing that turned out to be. But kind of what are your thoughts on, I mean, obviously we don't think Simeon and Seager are a bust. They've been, I mean, Simeon finished the season really strong. But what are kind of your thoughts on, John Gray, Simeon Seager, Martin Perez? I mean, how do you think they did for what the Rangers got them for?
Well, Perez was a steal, as it turned out. It was absolutely brilliant. Whether the Rangers can re-sign him or not, I think has to be the first priority right now in the offseason. But that was an incredible signing. I think the John Gray signing certainly lived up to expectations in terms of his performance. Unfortunately, part of his history is frequently injured. And that was the case again this year with 3 different stints on the injured list for 3 different reasons. So I guess you'd have to say ultimately it was somewhat disappointing because he only made about 2/3 of his starts.
Yeah, the best ability is availability, right?
Yeah, but clearly he showed, he's a very effective pitcher when you can get him to the mound. Simeon had a horrible first month, and after that, for me, he played at an all-star level, both offensively and defensively. I thought he did a fantastic job. Andres Jimenez was a clear choice for the Gold Glove at second base, but I think Marcus was probably a pretty strong second. I know he was officially a finalist, but to me, he did play Gold Glove caliber defense from May on, which was surprising to us because he was pretty horrible defensively in April. In addition to not hitting, it clearly affected him in the field too. As for Seager, that's the tough one because I don't think he ever played defensively as well as we thought he would and expected him to. We knew he wasn't a Gold Glover at short, but honestly, I thought he was better than the way he played this year. Offensively, the numbers are respectable, a little better than respectable. I was a little disappointed by maybe the clutch hitting, the lack of big hits late in games that you would have expected more of, I guess. But overall, for me, I'd say he was a mild disappointment, but with lots of years left on the contract to, that.
Just a few, like 9, right?
Yeah.
So let's go back to Martin. Obviously, that seems to be a priority for them to number one, get him re-signed. You never know with these things. You just never know, especially with guys coming off of really a career year for Martin, and the money that's going to be out there and the teams that are going to be willing to throw that money out there for a veteran pitcher that are contending. So, I mean, what are your thoughts and chances of him, returning to Texas next year?
I really don't know. I would assume the Rangers are going to issue the qualifying offer, assuming they don't get him signed, within the next few days, that they'll issue the qualifying offer. And then he'll just have to see what sort of offers are out there for multi-year deals and determine whether one of them makes more sense than accepting the $18 or $19 million that he would make on a one-year deal as the qualifying offer. I think there are probably still a lot of teams that look at Martin with some level of suspicion. This is the first time he's ever put a full season together, of outstanding pitching. And I don't know that there are that many general managers in baseball who fully trust Martin to be the guy that you want pitching when your season's on the line in the playoffs. And, that's going to be a factor in the sort of offers that he gets, especially from good teams.
Well, and do you think that his performance this year could have been like his experience of going to different teams and then coming, back to where he's comfortable? Do you think that was kind of maybe a microcosm, his comfort level with being back in Texas that maybe helped his performance this year?
Certainly possible. Definitely. It's hard to explain, did the Ranger pitching coaches have something to do with the fact that his command this year was so much better than it had been in previous years? That when he missed, he almost always missed just off the plate and not down the middle, which had happened to him in past years. Definitely the maturity factor was important. The fact that he wouldn't blow up when things started going badly. And, he wouldn't completely unravel once a run scored, it wouldn't become 2 or 3 or 4 runs the way it had frequently in past years. But, maybe that maturity had a lot to do with feeling more comfortable being back in Texas. It's a good question. But, I would think for Martin, having demonstrated that he's comfortable pitching in our ballpark, and being a part of the Rangers organization, if I were him, I'd prefer coming back. But again, if the money's out there for a big multi-year deal, it's going to be hard to turn down.
Right.
I agree with you 100%. All right. Well, you didn't get to see much of him. What are your thoughts on Josh Young? Of course, coming back a lot quicker than everyone thought he would from his injury. And going forward, do you think he's going to get that shot next year? Do you think he has to earn being the starting third baseman in 2023?
No, I don't think he has to earn it, Ben. I think it's his job. I'd be shocked if it's not. And I think it was much too small a sample to be able to evaluate. Clearly, he can do some damage. That became obvious. But whether he's a guy, who's going to hit 25 to 30 home runs and bat 200, or a guy who's going to hit 25 to 30 home runs and hit 250 to 280, remains to be seen. But I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to be a guy who's going to hit 25 to 30 home runs. It's the rest of the package, I think, that we need to wait on.
Yeah, and the defensive aspect as well, because he hadn't actually had much work in the field. He hit DH a lot of the time when he was coming back from those injuries the past couple years. So, getting him in the field and seeing what he can do in the field is another big aspect, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, for sure. And, he looked good out there. Didn't look like a guy who's going to hurt you defensively. But, I just don't think there was really a big enough sample to grade him out, as a defensive third baseman. Gotcha.
And there's I'm going to follow with we talked about pitching earlier. There wasn't enough pitching. You would imagine the Rangers would make some moves to, push forward and go get some pitching, whether it's signing. And I think it's likely going to happen more with trades with the prospects that the Rangers have, and some guys that have, that are major league players that have, they're not even arbitration eligible. So there's some guys that we fell in love with this year, both in the major leagues and the minor leagues, who might be used to bring in, a name. So give me your thoughts on that. This is to me, it's the most stocked the Rangers farm system's been. I mean, since I've been alive. So I just want to get your thoughts on it. And do you see them utilizing some of those prospects to bring in a haul or two?
I think they'll try. It's all conjecture as to what sort of deals might be out there. Which of those guys and how many of those guys are you going to have to include in the deal to get a guy who's already a proven top-level major league starting pitcher? Like you say, there's so many of those guys you fell in love with. There's Bubba and there's Duran and there's Josh Smith. Leody Taveras would be certainly in that conversation. Sam Huff. A lot of guys who you certainly can't consider untouchable that might be the building blocks for a trade like that.
Yeah, and then you look at Justin
see what deals are out there, you really don't know whether it makes sense to make a deal like that. And until you start talking to people like those free agent pitchers, regardless of which ones it is, whether it's the super high level ones, the DeGroms and the Verlanders, or the lower level ones like Chris Bassett and Noah Syndergaard and all the rest of them, until you see what it's going to take to get those guys, any conjecture along those lines is total guesswork.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we do here on the Ranger Report. Is
that's what Hot Stove Talk is all about, right?
Yeah, that's what we do here. You almost spit up your tea. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, well, I thought you were going to wrap it up. You got anything else for me?
Yeah. Oh, so
Sorry.
I was listening to the broadcast. Pretty much half the games I watched, half the games I listened to. Just depended on how much money I wanted to spend on live streaming TV. And, if not, I just pop on the radio and be like, "Hey, I got Sandler and Hicksey and Nadel. I mean, I'm taken care of." And I was listening to the broadcast tonight that y'all were talking about cologne, and we talked about this with Hicksey and with Sandler. You and Hicksey aren't much cologne wearers, but he was telling the Agua de Jo story and how his wife didn't much like it, and that's one of my go-tos. So, and Jared's too. And so yeah, you guys, you're not much cologne wearers, huh?
I know nothing about it. I could not tell you what a single scent smells like. I couldn't recognize one, and if you gave me a list of them, I couldn't tell you which ones are the expensive ones and which ones are the cheap ones. I know nothing about it.
I can give you a list of what I have, and it's about 12, and it depends on what. Yes, it depends on what color I'm wearing, depending on what flavor of cologne that I'm going to wear. I wear cologne around the house when I'm not going anywhere.
I'll tell you how long it's been since I wore cologne. I believe it was Jade East the last time I bought a bottle of cologne, either Jade East or Canoe. You know either one of those?
Canoe's good.
They were both pretty popular, like back in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, I've got Chrome, I've got Agua de Jo, I've got Tommy Hilfiger, I've got Rain, I've got Oak, I've got I mean, I can go on. It just depends.
CJ, no offense to you, but I use soap, and that's it. And I'm with Eric on this one. I think the last time I used cologne was like a couple of weeks after I got married, and I've been married for 25 years. So she doesn't like it, so I was good with not using it.
I'm just, if that's one of my quirks, then I'm fine with it. You know, if that's the major quirk that I have, that I like to smell good.
Yeah, that's a harmless little vice.
Yeah.
But my number one memory of cologne with regard to baseball was with Johnny Oates. Johnny Oates used to wear a couple of colognes that I really didn't care for. Musk, he wore one that was called not Elon, but Musk. And he also wore, he was known to wear English leather from time to time.
Oh, he didn't wear Stetson?
I don't think Stetson. I think it was Musk and English leather, and I didn't like either one of them. But Johnny was such a good guy; you're willing to put up with it.
Yeah, Johnny was genuine.
Yeah. Well, Eric, we really do appreciate the time during the off season you've taken with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Looking forward to things starting to happen in the next few weeks.
Yes, sir.
Start hearing some names coming to the Rangers.
What are your off-season plans? Oh, by the way, we had Abraham Alexander on the podcast, and I got to sing with him.
Oh, right.
Or attempt to sing with him. There's I can sing, but there's a different level between that kind of singing and my singing. I mean, he's amazing. Very good guy too.
Speaking of crazy things you never expect to happen by podcasting, because of that too, Eric, he gave me tickets to his show with the Black Pumas in Dallas, and I wound up going and seeing that show for free, and that was a great show.
All right. Yeah, I wish I'd seen that, and the Pumas are great too. But I've been spending the off season mostly in Colorado, and once it gets a little colder and snowier, we'll probably be back in Texas for the rest of the winter. And I remember I was out here actually last year, the day that the Rangers signed Marcus Semien and Corey Seager.
We were interviewing Taylor Hearn that day, the day that all that happened.
We're closing in on the deadline, so we're not going to have a date like that this year, where all of that stuff's going to happen within a 48-hour period. But I'm hoping maybe there'll be a day like that where we'll be sitting here looking at the mountains and read that the Rangers have just landed some big name pitcher.
Yeah, and we were planning on going to spring training last year, and we had some sponsors lined up that were gonna send us there. And then when the lockout happened, they pulled out on us, so we weren't able to go. This year, we intend on being there, so we look forward to meeting you.
All right,
this spring.
I'll probably be there for about half of March. It's usually how we do it.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you again, Eric Nadel. We appreciate it, sir.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Salute, sir.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to the Ranger Report podcast. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and at therangerreport.com.